Good morning. Good cold morning to you all. Thank you guys for joining us today for our virtual Lodi AgVenture. We are very glad to have you and appreciate you being here today. Looks like we have several of you joining us on Zoom and then several hundred of you joining us on YouTube Live. So thank you so much for being here and participating. We want to have as much time for your questions and interaction as possible. So I'm going to keep my opening comments brief. First of all, my name is Krista. I am the San Joaquin County AgVenture Coordinator, and I'm happy and proud to bring you this event today. A couple of housekeeping things. First of all, those of you joining us on Zoom, this is a webinar. It is not a traditional meeting that you've seen possibly. So you will not see individual boxes for all of the other schools that are joining. You're just going to see the content as we push it out. So don't be alarmed if you can't see anything. You're in the right spot. If you'd like to ask a question, or your class would like to ask a question, you can use the Q&A function to get those questions submitted for our panelists today. For joining us on YouTube Live, we will be using the chat function on the right-hand side of that box to push out questions to our panelists. Having said that, we want you guys to interact with us. We want you guys to be able to have an interactive experience. But that box and those features are solely for questions for our panelists. If you guys are have a question, submit it there, but any other questions, comments that don't pertain to what we're talking about are not permitted. They're not allowed to be in that area. We have someone designated to monitor that channel, and they will not only remove your comment, but they will remove you from the feed if you continue to abuse that privilege. So again, we want you to be here. We want you to have a good time, but we want to be respectful of everybody's time and their viewing ability. So keep that in mind. We want to have a good experience for everyone. Before we get started, I want to thank a couple of our sponsors today, and we'll go over a few more at the end. But the San Joaquin County Agricultural Commissioner's Office and San Joaquin County support this program, as well as the Michael David Winery Foundation actually supports in particular our Lodi event. So thank you guys so much for being sponsors and supporting this event. We also have the Specialty Crop Block Grant and the Cal Ag Plant Grant as well. And we'll go over a few more sponsors as we get a little bit deeper. This moment is for parents. So if there's any parents that are listening in, any chaperones that are listening in, turn your learning ears and your listening ears on for just a second. I have a unique opportunity to chat with you about real briefly. It's part of our grant that we fall under, which is the Specialty Crop Block Grant. We have an adult education component, and it is called the Healthy Dinner Program. And during that class, if you will, is a free 2-hour cooking class, and we will teach you how to make a recipe. You can see it's steak fajitas using specialty crops, and we are offering that both virtual and in person. So if you'd like to be a part of that, there's a flyer that's up on your screen right now. I encourage you to go to that link, call the Farm Bureau office and speak to Rachel. But you have to be a chaperone and have watched this event. So it can be this live event that you're viewing now or the recording. So if you have friends or family that weren't able to make it, keep that in mind. But I wanted to just share that note with you guys before we get started. Okay, so without further ado, we are here today at the Lodi AgVenture to chat with you guys a little bit about agriculture. We ask that you guys watch our presentations online, so I hope that you've done that. If not, you can go to our website, www.sjcagventure.com, and go to the field trips tab, and it has everything you need there. So we have our presentations. Teachers, you may know that our normal event, our in-person events, are comprised of presentations and the displays. The displays are what you're going to see today. But the presentations were professionally videoed and taken for you guys to enjoy. So go there if you haven't. Teachers and students, this is the worksheet. It is fillable, so follow along. If your teacher has assigned that to you, be sure that you're following along. So without further ado, we are here today to kind of give you a broad overview of agriculture and highlight some different industries and different components to our agriculture industry that you may not be super familiar with. So one of those things is gas and PG&E, and that what farmers and ranchers have to do every day to make sure that they're safe when working around gas and electric lines. So I have a friend named Rudy, and he's going to talk to us today a little bit about how to be safe around PG&E gas lines and what to do if you need to do any digging. So good morning, Rudy. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is Rudy Harris from PG&E. I'm here to demonstrate the importance of 811. 811 means call before you dig. so you know what's below the ground. Simulation that I could show you is just say somebody's planning to work on the yard. If it is on your own property, you should call that number 2 days prior to putting that shovel on the ground because you don't know what type of pipes are in the ground that could be dangerous to you, to the property, or sometimes disruption of service. Just say the workers are here working and they start digging, especially if the meter is close by. That means there's a gas line that connects from that meter. It goes to the main. It could be the main could be by the fence, on the street, or on your property line. So just say this guy here start digging. All of a sudden he hears this hissing. Now what he's gonna do? Now he's gonna have to call 911. So immediate response could come. But meantime, if that gas was leaking, it has a tendency to migrate into the house. What happens if it migrates into the kitchen? You still have water heater here with a pilot. You got a gas stove with a pilot. If you had a proper mixture, it could explode. Or if it's too rich, it'll just burn. If it's too lean, it'll burn. So this would be the effect of that. That's why it's very important to call 811. Call before you dig. Let's see another scenario that what could happen. Just say that you have workers. You're going to be working, put in a fence, or sometimes you could have a sewer pipe that's broken. What you do is before you start digging, you should mark it with white paint. That means that's your proposed excavation site. But these guys failed not to call 811. So they start digging. Guess what happens? All of a sudden, they hit they hit the gas line. Sometimes the gas might get coming out of that pipe is more dangerous because now you don't know where it's going to. If there was a broken sewer lateral, that means it'll go into the sewer lateral. Where do you think the laterals are connected to? It's connected to the main sewer. But if it gets ignited, all of a sudden you have this incident. Again, it's the importance of 811. 811 is a one-stop shop. That's why anytime there's a construction going on, when you see those different colors on the street or on the construction site, ours is yellow is our gas, red is electric, blue is water, orange is for phone or communication or cable, and green is sewer. That's why you can't see any of those pipes. That's why it's very important to call 811. Call before you dig, especially with this operator. Start excavating. What do you think happens? All of a sudden, he hits a gas line. That gas line, it could be from quarter inch to 10-inch line. With that pressure coming out of there, now he puts himself in danger. It could explode or it could catch fire. That's why it's very important to call 811. Now, here's a question. If this operator hits that gas line, what do you think he should do? He should not shut off the engine because anytime you have an ignition, you already have the gas blowing, you already have the oxygen out in the air mixture. With a proper mixture, it could explode or just catch fire. So what he should do is get himself out to safety, get away from the incident, call 911, and tell everybody to stay out, danger zone, and then just wait there until emergency services are on spot. Now, each house, if you have a gas meter like this is how we transport the gas underneath the ground up to the gas meter. This is what you call the regulator. It goes into the meter and it goes into the house. Anytime, just say we have a major incident, we have a major earthquake. Three things you should remember before you shut off the gas service: sight, sound, and smell. If you could hear the gas and you could smell the gas, you go to the gas meter. Here's the tank below the regulator, straight up and down is on. All you have to do is quarter turn one direction. When it's perpendicular to the pipe, that means it's off. Then, before you restore service, you should call us. We are the professionals that knows how to restore the services, especially in the major earthquake, because you'll never know what appliances could have been affected. That's why it's always important to call us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rudy. I appreciate you giving us some safety tips. I didn't know a lot of those things about gas lines and the importance of calling 811 and PG&E before we start to dig. So I have a couple of questions for you from some of our third grade students. Hannah over on YouTube Live would like to know, what is a gas line?
A gas line is a pipe that used to be transport gas into different buildings. It could
Gotcha.
consist of either plastic, copper, or steel.
Okay, and to kind of piggyback on that, so you mentioned that there are different size gas lines. Can you kind of explain why we have different sizes?
Oh, sure. In our system, we have two systems. It's called transmission and distribution. Transmission line are higher pressure. It goes interstate. So that's just like the major highway. And then it goes into different city, and then it distributed to a lower pressure. The transmission line, they range from 60 pounds all the way to 900 pounds. Distribution lines could go from quarter pound to 60 pounds. The gas lines that goes to different localities is called distribution. So it distributes to all different cities. And the other,
oh, yes. We have another question from YouTube Live. It says, is there a scenario where a person would not have to call 811?
Well, if you know for certain that you don't have any utility, if you can't see any utility underground, you don't think you're free from all utility, then you're free not to call 811. But it's easier to call if you're in doubt, because you never know if it's been in abandoned pipes underneath the ground that has been there in existence and nobody knows about it. So if you
better
just
safe than sorry.
That's the easiest way. 811, it's a free service to everybody, so might as well utilize it.
Yeah, very good. I have one more person who wants to know, what does gas smell like? You said there'd be an odor. What does gas smell like?
A natural gas on its natural form is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So at PG&E, we put mercaptan. It's just like almost like a rotten egg. So we could detect it, that there's a presence of gas leak in that area. That's why it's easier to detect. Plus, natural gas in its natural form is lighter than air, so it'll dissipate in the air. So once a gas leak incident happens, if it's uncontrollable, it just goes all over the place. That's why it's always best to call 911 when you smell that gas, and then they'll have a patch to our local district to get the emergency personnel to be on that site.
Oh, it's good teamwork that helps keep us safe. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. I know some of our students and teachers enjoyed hearing all about that. We're going to give you guys some more time to think of questions, and we're going to kind of switch gears on you here just a little bit, actually a lot of it. We're going to talk to Dr. Rich Osmankowski, who's going to talk to us a little bit about tomatoes and specifically how to make Heinz ketchup. I don't know about you guys, but I personally love ketchup on my French fries, hamburgers, hot dogs, etc. I probably shouldn't have skipped breakfast this morning. Anyways, without further ado, I think we should talk to my friend Rich and see how they make Heinz ketchup and what goes into doing that.
Okay. Good morning, kids. My name is Dr. Rich Osmankowski, and I'm here to talk to you about growing Heinz ketchup. So ketchup is made from tomatoes, just like a lot of other tomato products that you probably like, things such as pizza, as salsa, spaghetti sauce, but most importantly, ketchup. I work for Heinz, and I'm a tomato breeder. My job is making sure that the best tomatoes go into Heinz ketchup. So before you can have the sauces, the pizzas, and the ketchup, you need to have the right seeds. My job as a breeder is to create the right seeds. It all starts with the seeds. This is what a tomato seed looks like. Okay. So when we're trying to identify the best tomato varieties, the best tomato seeds to use for ketchup, there's a lot of research that needs to be done. We're testing, we're looking at the varieties in the field, hundreds and thousands of different varieties. We're taking a lot of notes and we're testing thickness. One of the most important things for a tomato variety to make good ketchup is to have very, very thick juice. You don't want runny ketchup, right? So we do all those testings and we work to find the right variety. Once we find the seed of the right variety, okay, we have to start little seedlings like these right here. These seedlings are grown in the field, or they're grown in the greenhouse. Then they're transplanted out into the field. In California alone, we grow around 250,000 acres of tomatoes. Once the tomatoes grow through the summer, and you've probably seen them along the highway, Interstate 5, when they're all ripe, a machine comes through and does a harvesting by cutting, okay? If you see in this video, the machine is cutting the whole plant. The tomato plant and the tomatoes go up into the harvester. They're shaken off and they're put into these trailers. Those trailers are something I'm sure that you've seen along the highway. Each of these trailer loads, each trailer holds around 13 tons of tomatoes. Okay, so the tomatoes have to be very firm so that when they're dumped into those trailers like this, they don't squish. So that's one of the things that the breeders look for in making a good ketchup tomato. Okay, the trailers are taken to the factory where they're dumped into flumes. They're like big rivers of water, and the tomatoes float on that river, and they're taken into the factories for cooking. Okay, we cook the tomatoes. They're sorted to make sure only the good ones go in. And then they're what we do when we cook them, we are evaporating, which means we're taking the water out of the tomatoes. And in the end, and they go into these large bags. And those bags have tomato paste, just like the paste that you have, your mom may use in the kitchen or your dad may use in the kitchen for cooking. But ours is a special paste. It's specially designed for ketchup. Okay. Once we have the tomato paste, we mix it with things like sugar and vinegar and salt, and most importantly, our top secret flavoring. That top secret flavoring, there's only a couple of people in the world that know what makes that flavoring special to Heinz. This gentleman here is our ketchup guru. He is the guy that is guarding the ketchup. His name is Hector. So he makes sure that the batch of ketchup tastes right and is made to perfection. At that point, we start taking that ketchup, we put it into bottles in a factory. Okay, these are two different bottle factories, and you wind up with the ketchup like this. Of course, not all of our ketchup goes into bottles. Sometimes it goes into those little packets that you see everywhere. And there's a machine that uses this film, and what it does is it cuts them and it glues them and it squirts the ketchup in them, and it makes thousands and thousands of packets in 1 hour. So with that, I'm open for any questions, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about what it takes to grow Heinz ketchup.
Thank you, Dr. Ozenkowski. We have some fellow ketchup lovers, it sounds like, and they have some questions for you. So let's jump right in.
Oh, great.
Lillian from Beckman wants to know how much sugar is in ketchup.
Well, sugar is part of the flavoring for ketchup. So in the ketchup, there is a lot of sugar, but there's a lot of vinegar, a lot of tomatoes, and salt, and of course, the special flavoring.
Of course, that special flavoring. I just wanted to remind real quick before we move on to more questions, those of us joining us on Zoom, and you are able to use the Q&A box function in order to ask us questions as well. That is enabled for your use. Okay, back to YouTube Live. We have a lot more questions for you. Emmanuel wants to know what kind of tomatoes are used to make ketchup.
Well, there's special varieties of ketchup. So varieties are like a kind of tomato, and there are lots of different kinds of tomatoes or varieties of tomatoes out there. In California, we grow probably, there's over 100 varieties of tomatoes grown, and only a few of them are good for ketchup. So what makes good ketchup, or good varieties that make good ketchup, again, like I said in the video, they have to be very thick juice, because again, we don't want runny ketchup. Also, we want tomatoes that are nice and red, okay? Because the only color in ketchup is coming from the tomatoes. So if we don't have good red color in the tomatoes, then we don't have good color in the ketchup. And so those are the two most important things from the tomato for ketchup.
Man, now the questions won't stop. I've got so many. Okay, another person over on YouTube Live wants to know how many tomatoes does it take to fill 1 bottle of ketchup?
Good question. I just looked that up the other day. So if you take a bottle of ketchup like this, okay, there's probably around 15 tomatoes go into this bottle of ketchup. And that's an approximate, because ketchup tomatoes are kind of small. They're only about this big typically, okay? So about a pound of ketchup, about a pound of tomatoes goes into about a pound of ketchup. And so just, if I may, I was thinking about this earlier. You can see the tomato seeds in this bottle of ketchup. If we planted all of these seeds in the field and we harvested them, we would probably get more than 500,000 bottles this size of ketchup.
Wow. Well, there's a fun fact for you. That's a lot of tomatoes on a lot of ketchup. Okay, Tatiana wants to know, what is a greenhouse?
A greenhouse, oh, that's very good. Well, it's very cold out here right now. Greenhouses are places where we grow plants. That's where I was in a greenhouse. It's where we grow plants in the winter. And there's actually a greenhouse, maybe we can look at the end of the video today, right across from me here at the Manteca Center. And
yeah.
it's a place where the plants can grow safe and warm when it's cold outside.
Gotcha. Yeah, to our camera person, can you go ahead and just pan around real quick so our students can see what a greenhouse is? So like Rich said, so that white thing in the back, that is a greenhouse, and it's nice and warm in there, and it allows all sorts of agriculturalists to grow all sorts of different seeds and little plants. In the winter when it's too cold, we can grow those in a greenhouse. Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we will circle back. So if we don't get to your question, we're going to do some more questions at the end. Let's see. Oh, we've had several that want to know, several students in classes want to know, how long does it take to grow the tomatoes?
Good question. Well, the, usually it takes about 110 days from the time you put that little seedling in the ground in the field until you get and harvest all the tomatoes are ripe on the plant.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. We have several more questions for you, but we're going to save those to make sure that we have time for all of our presenters. Looks like I have some fellow ketchup enthusiasts, and I like that. So we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We are going to talk about livestock. I don't know about you guys, but I know lots of us enjoy livestock and that part of the agriculture industry and the protein that they provide for us on a daily basis. And so today we're specifically going to talk to you about cattle, and we have one of our local cattlewomen here to talk to us. Good morning, Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm with the San Joaquin Stanislaus Cattlewomen. And my family has a cow-calf operation, which means that we raise mama cows and they raise their calves up to about 9 months. When the calves are born, they weigh between 70 and 100 pounds. And when they're weaned at 9 months, they weigh between 600 and 700 pounds. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what cattle eat and need to stay healthy. Okay, we keep our cattle on pasture most of the time, but when the pasture gets short, we need to supplement with other feeds. So we use hay. This is alfalfa hay. These are big bales that weigh about 1,200 pounds. It's a leafy green product with stem. It's all has a high protein content and is very nutritious for them. We rely on good farmers to produce our hay. They test the hay before they bale it to make sure it has the correct moisture content. If it's too wet, it'll mold in the bale. If it's too dry, the cows won't like it and won't want to eat it. Okay? This forage mix, it has grains in it. It has oats, maybe wheat or barley with a mixture of grasses. And they do it the same way. They test it to make sure it's at the right time and it's got some green to it. This big bale weighs about 1,200 pounds. This small bale of alfalfa weighs about 110 pounds. Okay, so big difference. Our forage mix bales will weigh about 100 pounds. Okay, along with our hay, we also make sure that our cattle have plenty of water. Our cows weigh about 12 to 1,300 pounds, and when they're nursing, feeding their calves milk, they on about a 65-degree day, they'll consume about 12 to 15 gallons of water. On a 90-degree day, that will go up to about 20 gallons of water. And if it's over a 100-degree day, they could consume up to 30 gallons of water. Okay, so they drink a lot of water. So we need to make sure we have a lot of water for them. Cattle also need minerals. We can put minerals in, they come in a tub like this. This one they've already eaten, but it's a mixture of molasses with zinc and copper and selenium, which is all keeps them healthy. We can also give them a dry mineral. They'll eat that also. Cows eat what they need. Okay, so they're not going to overeat on their minerals. They'll just eat what they need. We also can give them in a big tub. There's one out in the field that's a molasses lick, and that has a wheel on it, and they'll eat that. And that's also good for them. They also need salt in their diet. Salt helps regulate their water intake and helps their digestive system. When calves are weaned and they go to the feedlot, they'll eat a mixture of grain. This grain is corn, oats, barley mixed with molasses. They love their molasses. Just like we like candy, they like molasses. They also are eating, they're great recyclers. They eat a lot of food products that we don't eat. A lot of cannery waste, the peels off of fruits and vegetables. They eat sugar beet pulp, um, almond hulls, corn stalks and the cob of the corn. We eat the corn kernels, but they eat the rest of it. Um, they eat cereal byproducts, citrus pulp, anything that comes from a cannery that we don't eat. They eat fruits and vegetables that are damaged and won't go to the grocery store. They go to the feedlot for the cattle to eat in a mixed ration. Cattle get about 95% of their nutrients come from sources that are not suitable for humans. We can't eat hay, right? So, why can cattle eat what we can't? Well, cattle are ruminant animals, which means that they have a stomach with 4 compartments. They chew with their mouths, it goes down their esophagus. The first compartment is called the rumen. In the rumen, there's microorganisms that mix with the food to make it soft and start breaking it down. From the rumen, it goes to the reticulum. The reticulum also processes that food, and whatever doesn't get processed in the reticulum that is still too large to go to the next compartment goes back up and gets chewed again. Have you ever heard the term chewing your cud? That's what cows do. They chew their cud. You may have seen cows laying out in the field, and they're chewing their cud. From there, it goes to the omasum. In the omasum, the water is taken out, and then it moves on to the abomasum. In the abomasum, it's finished being digested with juices, and from there, it goes to the small intestine and into the large intestine. In the intestines, that's where the nutrients are taken out and put into the bloodstream. And then the rest, waste, is excreted as manure. With all this eating and chewing and digesting, cattle are great for the environment. They're out there grazing. When they're grazing, their hooves are making dents in the soil that lets in water and oxygen. Um, they also provide natural fertilizer. Okay, cattle are great firefighters. They eat down the grass and the brush to reduce fire fuels. Um, as I mentioned before, cattle are great recyclers, eating the products that we don't. Okay, in doing all this, they provide us with nutritious beef. Because we keep our cattle healthy, our cattle provide us with the essential nutrients necessary for good health, such as protein, absorbable iron, zinc, and B vitamins. This tractor is how we load these great big bales. Since we can't pick them up, 1,200 pounds, we do it with this tractor and these forks. We put the forks into the bale, and then we load it on our feed truck. So let's go feed some cattle. Okay, these are Black Angus cattle. These calves that you see are from 4 and 5 months old. You may notice that it's a little wet and windy out here, but as cattle ranchers, we have to take care of our animals no matter what the weather is. So they're happy to get this feed.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for taking us out to your ranch and showing us a little bit of what it's like to be a farmer and raise cattle, and showing us how to feed them. That was awesome. I certainly enjoyed myself, and I know some of our kids did too, because they have all of the questions for you, like all of them. So let's start with the most pressing concern. Can you differentiate for us your cattle and what they're for, and what dairy cattle are for, and kind of that distinction? We have a little bit of confusion going on.
Okay, so we raise beef cattle. Our cattle are used for meat. So eventually they will be harvested and they'll show up in your grocery store as hamburgers, steaks, roast. Dairy cattle are used mostly for milk. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy that gallon of milk, that's where you get it from. It's from a dairy.
Oh, thank you. So Beef cattle are for beef, for meat, and then dairy cattle are for milk and cheese and other dairy products. Thank you so much for clarifying that. We had some questions about that. Okay, we have a lot of students, but specifically, Athena and Riley would like to know, how long do cattle live?
Well, cattle, just like people, live different time lengths. Most cows will live to be maybe 13, 14, 15 years old. The young ones, that's a mama cow that will live to be that long.
Okay. And then a lot of students want to know, how many cattle do you have and how many babies?
Okay, so we have about 150 mama cows, and with a good year, we have 150 babies.
Okay, so roughly one baby per mom if everything goes right.
If everything goes right, one baby per mom, yep.
Sometimes they have twins?
They do. Actually, in that field we were feeding, we did have a set of twins.
Okay, well, good to know. Okay, we have some more questions. So Emily would like to know, how do cattle get minerals in nature if they're not raised on a farm?
Well, there's a lot of minerals in the ground. Okay, so naturally they'll pick some up when they're eating the feed off the ground, the grasses. They'll pick some of it out of that, and some of it goes into the grasses. So yeah, naturally different areas have different minerals.
Okay. Ethan would like to know, what is the difference between normal hay and alfalfa hay?
Well, I'm not sure what he considers normal hay, but alfalfa is a really green leafy hay. I have some here, and you can see that it's got lots and lots of leaf to it. And it's very, very high protein, very nutritious for them. And then our forage mix hay has a lot of grain in it. So it's just a different type of hay. It depends on what area you're in and what you want to feed them.
Okay, and then someone else would like to know, where do you get the hay from?
Well, we buy hay from people who grow hay. So this hay comes, it could come locally, or there's a lot of big hay farms in Nevada, the state of Nevada.
Oh, okay.
But we try to buy it as local as we can, but there's hay farmers out there that grow lots and lots of hay.
Okay, good to know. Tatiana asked if it's true that bulls are attracted to the color red.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. If they're really attracted to red, I don't know about that. Yeah, I think they're more attracted to the idea that somebody's waving something in front of them than it is the color.
Got ya. Okay. Man, all these questions, y'all are asking such good ones. I have so many. We're going to get to a couple more, and then we're going to move on and come back. Okay. Oh, Kimberly wants to know, can you feed a cow apples?
Oh, yes. Yes. That's part of the food waste, that if there's apples that go through and the grocery store can't use them, they send them to the feedlot. They'll chop them up and send them out to the feedlot for the cattle to eat. You bet.
Oh, good. Okay, and last question. How do you know what kind of hay to give the cows? What will they like?
Well, they pretty much think that any hay is a treat for them. But when the weather's really, really cold, you're going to want to give them probably more alfalfa, something with a higher protein content. Just like us, we eat more and we need more to keep us warm. It's the same thing with our cows.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We have some really good questions rolling in, so hopefully we'll have a few extra minutes at the end and we can get back to some of those. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw Cheryl feeding those cows, that looked pretty cool. And so I think we should take a little stretch break and pretend to be farmers. I don't know about you guys, but I think we should pretend to be cattle farmers. So I want you guys to do me a favor, stand up. Yep, I mean it, stand up. Okay, and we're gonna go down the road like we have a feed truck and it has our hay on it, alfalfa or forage, whatever you decide. And we're gonna pull our hay off the truck and feed our cows really, really hard. Okay, everybody up? Ready? Okay, here we go. Pull, 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 pull. Oh, look, you have more over there and they're hungry too. Okay, ready? Here we go. One more time. Oh man. Being a farmer is hard work, y'all. I mean, it really is. Okay, now that we've had a little stretch break, I don't know about you guys, but my cows are happy. Are your cows happy? Yeah? Do you have some Black Angus cows like Cheryl does? Okay. All right. Have a seat back down in your chair for me. Got a little stretch break, got our wiggles out. We're going to talk about something completely different than cattle. We are going to talk to my friend Katie, and Katie is with California Farmland Trust. And she's going to talk to us about an activity that you guys got in your AgVenture student packet. And this activity is called Aren't You Glad We Have Farmland? So Katie's going to talk to us a little bit about it. In the boxes that you guys and your teachers received was an orange for you guys to use and go through this activity, as well as a poster. So good morning, Katie. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring this activity, and we can't wait to hear some more.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I'm with California Farmland Trust. Today, we want to teach you a little bit more about the importance of understanding where your food comes from and how little farmland there really is to grow all the food that we need to feed a growing world and a growing population. So we want you to think of this orange just like you would think of the planet Earth. And we're going to cut up this orange to really demonstrate our point of how much land we can use to grow food. So the materials that you'll need for this project are a cutting board, a knife that's safe to use, a plastic knife will work, or whatever is safe, an orange, and some paper towels are good to have on hand because the oranges can get a little bit messy. So we're going to start with cutting our orange into quarters. So you'll start with just cutting it in half. And then once you have 2 halves, you will slice it again. So you'll have 4 equal quarters. And if we're working on fractions, we would have 4 quarters, which each represent 25% of a whole. So we're going to take 3 of these quarters and set them aside. These 3 quarters represent all of the water on Earth's surface. Obviously, we can't grow food on the water and in the ocean. This 25% represents all the land that is remaining. We're going to take this quarter and cut it into 4 equal pieces again. And again, we are going to set aside 3 of the 4 pieces. These 3 pieces represent land that is rocky, desert, swamps, and land that's just not good for growing our food. So we're going to set this aside. And again, if this was 25%, 25%, 25%, so that was 75%, this was 25%. If we divide it by 4, we end up with approximately 6.25% left. This is land that, in theory, would be suitable for actually growing food, but it's not. Once we cut the peel off, we're down to 3%. This 3% is all of the land that we have on planet Earth to grow all of the food we need to feed you, me, and everyone else. So if you think of it in relation to this orange, the farmland that we have is important. It's important to you and it's important to me. And it's important that we all do our part to be good stewards of the land, to take care of our farmland and do what we can to make sure that that land exists for generations to come. If you're interested in learning more about this activity, please visit our website, California Farmland Trust, at www.cafarmtrust.org. Thank you.
Good morning, Katie. Thank you so much for being here with us. First of all, I just want to thank California Farmland Trust for donating oranges for all of our 3rd grade students that are here today joining us. We really appreciate that, and I hope that you guys enjoy your tasty orange. I might have snuck one, and they're very delicious. So thank you, Katie, so much. We appreciate that. I have a student here who's very concerned about our land as well, and they want to know what can they do as 3rd graders to protect our land and our farmland.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And there's definitely things that you can do at home and in your community to help protect farmland. 3 simple things such as recycling, making sure that, you fill up those recycling bins that you probably have at home, not littering. And, certainly some communities go as far as helping to pick up trash, whether it's around your community, your school. And the 3rd is to helping to conserve water. And there's simple things such as turning off the water while you're brushing your teeth. not just leaving a hose running in your yard. And so recycling, not littering, and conserving water are three things that you can do at home to help protect our land and certainly our natural resources.
Thank you. We have a few questions about oranges themselves. So one of our students, actually several, it looks like, over on YouTube Live want to know how much sugar is in an orange.
Oh gosh, that is a great question. The orange activity is something that's representative of protecting farmland. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert in the citrus industry other than saying that when you cut up the orange, it's definitely a healthy and nutritious snack.
Oh, very good. Oranges are one of my favorite snacks. Very good for soccer games. We have a question from Zoom. Carrie wants to know, how many orange trees do you have? I think that's a student question.
So I actually don't have any orange trees. We were fortunate to be able to film the activity in someone's orange grove. But certainly as you look throughout the Central Valley of California, down in kind of the Fresno through the Tulare area, there are a lot of citrus groves down in that area. Those oranges are being harvested right now, and harvest will continue through late spring to early summer and certainly be hitting your grocery store shelves. And we hope that you have an opportunity to enjoy them as a healthy and nutritious snack.
I have a question from Athena, and you kind of touched on it, but maybe you could elaborate just a bit. It says, where is the best place to grow oranges?
Well, California, we're blessed to live here and that we can grow over 400 different commodities throughout the Central Valley. And that's because of our soil, our access to water, our Mediterranean climate that we have. But for the most part, a lot of our citrus production is down in the San Joaquin part of the valley, which isn't necessarily San Joaquin County, but more from that Madera, Fresno, Kings, Tulare, that part of the area where it gets a little bit warmer in the summer. That seems to be that, and certainly throughout Southern California and historically throughout Southern California was where the bulk of our citrus production in California is rooted.
Awesome. Kind of touched on that for us. They're interested to know where we can grow them. So I think some of them are maybe wondering about Florida. So yes, certainly Florida does have oranges as
Florida
well.
as well.
We have a question. Bridget wants to know, how big can an orange get? That's an interesting question.
That's a great question. I don't know kind of what the record is, but I know this morning when I went to my local Raley's to pick up some oranges, they had a lot that were big, and these are certainly every bit of softball size, if not bigger. And so, there's certainly different varieties, and depending upon the variety of citrus, whether it's the cuties or halos that are tangerines and a little bit smaller, through some of these bigger varieties of oranges, they can definitely get big and can certainly be a pretty fulfilling snack.
Awesome. Well, it looks like our students, some of them need a little reminder. Can you remind us what % of the world's land is suitable for farmland? Those of us following along on our worksheet here.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the answer is, again, that 3% of the earth. So if we were to think of this orange as, earth, there's only 3% of it, a very small fraction. And hopefully you got a sticker that you can put on your orange that represents what that 3% is. And that's all the land that we have in the world to grow the food that we need to eat. And so it's important that we each play a role in protecting that farmland to make sure that we continue to have access to healthy, nutritious foods.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. And thank you again to California Farmland Trust for sponsoring that activity and being here with us. We hope that you guys enjoy that and have a little bit of a hands-on activity in our virtual world, if you will. So thank you guys once again. And we all need to do our part to preserve and conserve and protect our farmland so that it will be here for generations to come. So thanks again. We are going to shift gears, and I don't know about you guys, but this is a little bit dirtier of a topic maybe. And we're going to talk about worms and composting. And we're going to talk to my good friend, Marcy, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what it takes and what worm composting is and how all of that works. And she even has some worms to show us. So good morning, Marcy. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcy Souza, and I'm with the San Joaquin County UC Master Gardener Program. Today, we are going to talk about vermicomposting. What is vermicomposting? Well, vermi is the Latin word for worms, so it's composting with worms. Why is composting important? Well, 40% of everything that goes into the landfill is organic matter that could be composted. It could be recycled and used back into our gardens. Things like grass clippings, food scraps, and other organic materials. 25% of that is food waste that we're throwing away that's going into our landfills. Vermicomposting or worm composting helps reduce the amount of green waste entering our landfills. So let's talk a little bit about worms. Worms have 5 hearts. They do not have any teeth. They have a gizzard. So this is very important when they take a bite of something. They have a gizzard that sort of acts like a garbage disposal that helps grind up the food so that they can digest it. They breathe through their skin. So this is important because we want to keep our worm bin damp, not too wet, but not too dry. This is why if you're on the playground or the sidewalk when it's raining and you see a bunch of worms coming out of the soil, they're coming out so that they don't drown since they do breathe through their skin. Same thing in the summertime, if you see a bunch of worms that are dried out and didn't survive our summer heat, it's because their skin got too dry. And worms do not have eyes. Their skin is light sensitive. So this is how they can see where they're at in the soil, is by how much light their skin is registering. So let's talk about the food that we would feed our worms. So again, we're trying to avoid the food scraps that we're throwing away into the landfill. And our worms like to eat fruit and vegetable scraps. They will eat eggshells and coffee grounds. Along with the coffee filters, they'll eat the paper as well. Banana peels. I've got this lettuce that wasn't good anymore for salads or sandwiches, but the worms would love to eat all of this. And so the way we feed our worms is we would pull the bedding aside and then place some food into the bin. We would want to cover it back up and then just leave it. And the worms will start to work on the food that we fed them. About 1,000 worms equals 1 pound, and worms can eat their weight in food in a matter of 2 or 3 days. And so that's really quite a large amount of food that we're diverting from our landfills, and quite a bit of organic matter that's not going into the landfills. The reason why we want to keep organic matter out of the landfills is our landfills are filling up. We're running out of space to put our garbage, and organic matter produces methane gases. And this becomes an issue when we look at air quality. So we're trying to conserve space as well as keep our air quality in a healthier position than what we're leaning towards with all the methane gases that are escaping from the landfill. For worm composting, we use red wigglers. So you can see here, this is the best kind of worm to use for worm composting. We wouldn't want to use night crawlers or other big fishing worms. These guys here like to be in closed confined spaces. They like to eat food waste and organic matter, and so they're the best ones that aren't going to try to escape. They're going to be happy living in this home that you provide them. So we feed our worms. We want to make sure that our worms are in a bin that is not see-through. Again, worms don't like a lot of light, and so we want to make sure that they're in a dark container. This bin right here you can see has holes, and these holes are to provide air for the worms so that they don't get too hot and they have fresh air to breathe. We want to keep this bin where it's not too hot, not too cold. Worms are very similar to humans, and they like mild temperatures. So in the wintertime, we want to protect them from the cold temperatures and rain. And in the summertime, we wouldn't want to have them out in our hot summer sun. So we want to keep them protected from the elements. Now, worm bedding, that's one thing I did not talk about. You may see here, here's some shredded paper that we threw in for some worm bedding. For the bedding, they do need some type of bedding, and you can use shredded paper, you could use newspaper. Eventually, they will eat this cardboard that we keep in here. So they'll decompose all of that. They're great decomposers. And what do they produce? So once the worms have eaten your food scraps or the paper, they produce worm castings. And this is what castings look like. It's got a little bit of paper in it mixed in. But this is a great soil amendment. It is full of nutrients and vitamins for your plants. It's great to start seeds in if you are growing your own vegetables. I sprinkle some into my house plants every couple of months to give them a super boost of vitamins. And this is something that's natural. The plants don't have to do anything to use it. They can use this right away as soon as it starts breaking down into the soil. And so with that, one more thing I want to show you guys. Worms come out of cocoons. And so these little tiny things here are worm cocoons. And 1 to 5 worms will come out of one of those cocoons. So I think that's pretty amazing that that many worms can live inside of one little cocoon. With this box, if I stopped feeding them, the worms would stop producing. They know when they don't have enough food. And if I put them into a bigger box or started giving them more food, they would start repopulating again. So they know when they need to slow down on their population, and they know when they need to start producing more baby worms for the amount of food and the size of their box. So let's take a look at one of the ways that I would use these worm castings out in my garden. So we've got some freshly planted vegetable plants here, and I would just break this apart, sprinkle it around my plants, and then once we water it in, that will provide some really great nutrients for our plants. So I hope you all enjoyed learning a little bit about vermicomposting or worm composting. And next time you see a worm on the sidewalk or on the playground, pick it up and put him back towards the soil so he can get back to his home. Thank you.
We have some fellow worm lovers here, Marcy. We have so many questions for you. Okay, so most of these seem like they want to create their own worm composting backyard situation. So one of the most popular questions is, how long do worms live?
Worms can live, if they're in the right environment, they have enough food, they're happy in their home, they can live anywhere from 3 to 5 years, these red wigglers that we have.
Okay. Carol Wood would like to know, do you ever have too many worms?
You could have too many worms. If you're overfeeding them, they will continue to produce worms. Your box can be too small for the amount of food that you're putting in. And so what you'd want to do is either share some worms with your friend so that they could start their own worm box, or move your worms to a bigger bin than maybe what you have them in, to give them some more space for the amount of food that you're giving them. But I think, can you really ever have too many worms? They're doing amazing things of decomposing our food instead of us having to throw it away into the landfill.
Okay. Van wants to know, if a worm gets chopped in half, can it stay alive?
Oh, that's a good question. We get that a lot, and that is a myth. So a lot of people will think that if you cut a worm in half, it will, you'll have 2 worms, and that is not the case. What you have is a worm that little body is just still moving. Worms can grow new tails, but they cannot grow a new head. So the tail end of the worm will never become a new worm. It'll eventually just stop moving. So no, you will not get 2 worms if you cut a worm in half.
Good to know. Evan wants to know, how many worms can be grown in one farmyard?
In one barnyard?
Farmyard, yeah.
Farmyard. I don't have that answer. This box here probably has about 3,000 worms in it, in this little box here. So, I mean, if you look at the size of a farm, you'd have millions and millions of worms that could live on a farm. So I don't have an answer for that, of how many worms would live in a farm.
Marcy, are you willing to dig in your box a little bit and pull out a worm for us?
I would love to.
We have a student who'd like to know, someone from YouTube Live, and I'm sorry you don't have your name. They want to know if we can see the mouth. So let me say, Zoom is a little bit hard to zoom in, so bear with us, guys, but we'll see if we can show you. There they are. Hello, little worms. So Marcy, you'll take it from here.
Okay, so you cannot see the mouth of a worm. They're really tiny. It would be really difficult. Actually, we've got 2 worms right here. But this is the head end. So worms have these bands that almost look like a rubber band wrapped around the worm. And from this band to the short end, that is towards the head. This longer end of the worm is the tail end. And so the mouth would be right in there, right where it's looking right towards the camera. the little white spot right there, that is where the worm mouth is at, but it is very tiny. It's very hard to see.
Oh, interesting. Well, thank you. I think our students liked that. And so can you remind us, we have some questions about worm types and like breeds. Can you talk to us? I know that you put a certain type in your box. Can you remind our students what that is?
So our worms that we use for vermicomposting are red wigglers, and they are happy in small confined spaces. They like to eat people food, organic matter that we throw in there. A lot of times people will buy night crawlers to go fishing, or larger worms, and those worms like to be deep in the soil. They do not want to live in a shallow tote box like this. They don't want to eat, eggshells and banana peels. They're looking more for things like leaves and other insects that they would find in the soil. So red wigglers are definitely one of the better worms for worm composting or vermicomposting.
Okay, final question. We've gotten several of them. How big can a worm get?
Oh, so the red wigglers stay about the size that you saw when I held them in my hand, but there are lots of different species of worms, and I know one of the larger ones was close to 23, 24 feet long. It wasn't here in the United States, but they can get to be very big. I would not want to run across a worm that is 23 feet long, though, I can tell you that much.
That's snake status. Yeah, no thank you. No thank you. Whoa. Okay, well, thank you so much, Marcy. We'll get back to some of those questions shortly. We do have a couple more little things for you guys. So I'm going to preface this video with the gentleman who's going to be talking with us. He had something come up last minute and is unable to join us. But I wanted to be able to share the content with you anyway, so that you guys can see. So a lot of those folks that have talked to you today, in order to do most of our work in agriculture in some capacity, we need farm equipment. And oftentimes that farm equipment is real big. So I'm going to take you guys out. We're going to talk to Alex with NNS Tractor, and he's going to show us around a bit.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Pino, and I work for NNS Tractor Company. I am the store manager here in our Stockton location and in Turlock. Today, we're going to be talking about one of our brands of tractors, the one behind me, Case IH, the big red tractors. You notice some things about this tractor, and the first thing is the giant numbers on the hood. Those numbers represent how much horsepower this tractor is capable of. Horsepower tells farmers how much power this has and the work they can do. So this one here has 380 horsepower. Not all brands are this way, but Case IH is nice enough to do that for us and keeps it simple. So, as we mentioned, 380 horsepower. How much is that? Well, I guess in the old days, they actually figured how many horses it would take to do the amount of work this could do when they were pulling implements. So 380 horses is a lot. And I think you can get that idea by the size of this machine. Now, if you look at these tires, they are almost up to my neck. Massive. So think about the work that can do. Now, if you come back here, no tires, this is called a track. And some of you have probably seen tracks in the snow, on tanks. Um, really strong machines use these things. Now, one of the things we use it for in agriculture, notice what we call the footprint, really long and wide. This is to prevent compaction. Now, what compaction is compression of the soil. That is kind of bad for roots of plants. Think about a plant trying to pop out of the ground when the ground has been really compacted. Pretty tough to do. So to prevent that, we spread the load, and that's what we use tracks for. Now, this is a new model, not very common, so you probably haven't seen a bunch of them, but you were the first to see it here. So here we are on the back side of the machine, and back here a lot of awesome things happen. You'll notice these hooks, and those are to hook up implements or the tools that do the work on the ground. So to keep it simple, they can hook into these implements and take off. Now, that's one form of hookup. Down here, we have what's called a drawbar. Now, the implement has a tongue that connects here with a hole in it, and now they can tow it. So, helps to get things connected. Now, one other thing you'll see that only tractors have is what's called a PTO. That stands for power takeoff. What you can do there is connect a drive line that drives the implement. Sometimes implements require engine power to rotate or cut grass, things like that, would use that to connect and tap power from the engine. Okay, power takeoff. Okay, now we're on the right-hand side of the same tractor, and you'll notice this big giant tank looking thing, and that's a muffler. Now, there's some special things going on in that muffler nowadays, and that is there's a chemical reaction with a thing called DEF. That's diesel exhaust fluid. Now, what that does is help to clean the air or exhaust that comes out of this engine so that it's better for all of us to breathe. It's a requirement nowadays. And Case IH is doing their part to keep our world safe and clean. And so now the last place we're going to visit on the outside of this tractor, we're up in front, somewhere you don't want to be when it's moving, but there's some interesting stuff here. You notice the front weights. Now we talked about the weight of this thing and we didn't want to have much, but we do need some. Think about the implement on the tail end being super heavy. You don't want this thing to tip up. So what do you have to do? Use a counterbalance, and that is those weights there. Okay, and now we're on the inside of the same tractor. And inside here, there's a lot of new things nowadays. In the old days, driving tractor was tough. They were hard to handle, heavy, they bounced you around. But nowadays, they're almost as comfortable as your family car. In fact, you'll notice a lot of the same features. I can make myself very comfortable in the seat and I can reach everything, all the controls, piece of cake. Now, some of the cool stuff in here, we have a stereo, just like in your family car, air conditioning, which you absolutely have to have. And then we have shades so that the sun doesn't bother us. Now, of course, everyone has to have their phone with them nowadays. We can charge it. We can also connect that to the phone and a full surround stereo system so that if you're stuck in here for 10 hours working, it's not such a bad place to be. One of the other features I wanted to mention is the cool visibility. You can see in every direction when you sit in this guy and do all the work that you have to do and make sure that everyone around you and yourself is safe. We talked about all of the comforts, but now we're going to talk about function. Now, part of being functional is that being able to reach things and work from one spot without having to reach too far or get out of position. Up on top, we have our stereo, air conditioning, and all of the lighting controls in one swift, easy reach. Then we have all of our work functions, control of the unit, how fast the engine's going, which direction we're traveling, and our engine speeds, all within one hand's reach. Now you see what looks like a computer screen or an iPad. What this guy is it is how we control the entire tractor and we can see how the tractor's doing. Engine temperature, outside temperature, direction, everything we wanted to know about the tractor and its environment is given to us right here. So in one easy to reach place, and just like an iPad, we can bounce around, see the things we need to see. Now, we talked about how the implements can be lifted or towed with this machine. We have controls here once those things are connected that we have now control of the implement way in the back. So all that is easily visible once we have a hand here and look back. Makes it awesome. In closing, I'd like to thank you for being here with us today and thank you for allowing me to show you this nice tractor. A couple interesting facts I wanted to give you before we left. This particular unit weighs about 41,000 pounds, very heavy. When you see the big rigs going down the road, it is almost all that they can carry. So think about that. They haul a total of 80,000 pounds with their weight. Some of them weigh about 30,000 pounds. So you can imagine that's a lot of weight. Now, another interesting fact here at NNS Tractor Company, not only do we sell these tractors, we fix them. And we also allow the opportunity for farmers to fix their own by selling parts. So a lot is going on every day here at NNS Tractor, and we hope you come and visit us one day.
Good morning. Thank you guys. I know Alex couldn't be here today. He had something come up very last minute, so he sends his apologies. And if you have questions for him, let me know and I'll get you guys the answers to those. So in your student handout materials that you guys received prior to this field trip, you received a plastic bag with 2 cotton balls and 2 beans. And I'm sure that you guys are wondering what in the heck you're supposed to do with it. So here is a little video demonstration for you guys for your bean in a bag activity.
Hi everybody, my name is Marcy Souza and I'm with the San Joaquin County UC Master Gardeners. Today I'm going to show you how to prepare your bean in a bag. So you are all going to get a piece of paper that looks like this. It's your mini greenhouse for the window. And you are also going to get a Ziploc bag that's going to have 2 cotton balls in it and 2 bean seeds. Now the first thing that you are going to want to do is you're going to take a pair of scissors and just kind of gently fold your paper, make a slit in it, and you're going to want to cut the center of your greenhouse out. This is where your Ziploc bag is going to go. And at the top, there are 2 lines that say cut this off, and you're going to go ahead and cut that off. There we go. So now it looks like a house. My friend Riley planted these bean seeds that we're going to take a look at. And so she wrote her name at the top and she wrote the date that she planted them. She planted these on Sunday, February 21st. And so your next step would be to decorate your greenhouse. You can color it, you can add additional drawings to it, but you want to make this your own mini greenhouse. Okay, so now you're going to open up your Ziploc bag and you're going to take out the cotton balls. And you want to have some water handy. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your cotton ball nice and wet, and then you want to squeeze it out. Nice and get all that water out. We don't want the seed to rot. If the seed is in too much water, then it has the chance of rotting. And then we're going to kind of just fluff our cotton ball back up, just like that. Okay, so we're going to do that to both of our cotton balls. And then we're going to take our bean seeds and we're going to kind of just tuck them in and around this fluffy cotton ball. And again, you want to make sure you get as much water out. If the bean seeds are in too much water, they can rot and they'll never sprout. So you'll just kind of tuck the bean seed, make a little, almost like a little pillow, little blanket for it, and then you're going to put it directly into your bag. So we're going to do this for both of them. Okay, we're going to seal the bag about halfway. We want to leave part of it open so that the beans can get some fresh air, because we all know that one of the things that seeds need to grow is oxygen. So we don't want to deprive them of getting some fresh oxygen. And then we're going to take our greenhouse that we cut out and you can just turn it over. And what I do is just take some tape and you want to find the end that you did not. I always put a little bit on the side and then make sure you tape the end that is closed, not the end that is open. Okay, so now you can see that your cotton balls will show through the window. And then what you want to do with this is you want to put this in your window. You want to put it in a window that gets lots of sunshine, lots of light, that is warm, and you'll tape it to the window. And you can see Riley's bean that she just planted on Sunday has already sprouted and is starting to grow. And so we're just going to leave this just like this in her bag. We don't need to do anything else to it. And eventually you'll start to see the stem grow. You'll get some leaves, some true leaves, and it will eventually even grow out of the Ziploc bag where you have the opening at. I've had to tape the beans to the window just to keep kind of trellising them up as they kept growing. So it's really a fun project for you get to see how a bean looks as it's sprouting and as a green bean is growing. Hope you guys all have fun with this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Marcy and our San Joaquin County Master Gardeners for sponsoring this activity and doing our video demonstration for us. My daughter and I planted our own seed and they are trellising up our window. So thank you guys so much. We've certainly enjoyed that and I know you guys will too. That concludes our program. I'm trying to keep this hour and 15 minutes, as I promised your teachers. So we're not going to have time for any more live questions, but some of our panelists are answering your questions over here on Zoom. And then what I'll do is I'll take any of the other questions that we get and we'll answer them in written form, and I'll email those back out to the teachers, the ones that we get over and over again and seem really common. I'll make sure we get those answers to you guys. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. We certainly appreciate them giving up their time and their resources to be here. Just a reminder for any of our adult chaperones, that's parents or teachers, if you have watched this, followed us along live or watched the recording, you are eligible to participate in our Healthy Dinner program, which is a free 2-hour cooking class. We will be offering this May 20th live in person as well as via Zoom. So if you'd like to sign up, you can follow the link on your screen or email Rachel directly. I'd like to also thank our teachers for being here and joining us at this virtual seminar. You guys will have also received some cabbages and those cabbage plants. Those are donated by Bonnie Plants. Follow those instructions in there and give those to your students, and be sure that you submit to win a $1,000 scholarship. One of our students will be receiving that in the state of California, and hopefully it'll be from our county. Our other sponsors for today's event are, like I said, San Joaquin County Agricultural Commissioner's Office, San Joaquin County, the Cal Ag Plate Grant, California Ag in the Classroom sponsored all of those What's Growing On magazines that you guys received, the Michael David Family Foundation, the Specialty Crop Block Grant, and San Joaquin County Master Gardeners, and then of course, California Farmland Trust and Bonnie Plants. The rest of our sponsors are listed here on your page. Send them a thank you, give them a shout out, give them your patronage, whatever you're able to do. We certainly appreciate this. Again, this is a free virtual or in-person experience for your students, depending on the year, and we certainly appreciate you being here. As we're about to get off, you can see here we have a couple of other events, one more left, in fact, that'll be Manteca AgVenture, and that recording will be available to you and your students just as this webinar was recorded. It will be recorded and available for you guys to view as well. If you view Manteca, Lodi, and Stockton AgVentures, you guys will see about 16 to 20 different displays, so we hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't viewed our presentations, please go do those. Those are listed on our website. If you are watching via Zoom, you will immediately following get a survey link. Please fill that out. Let us know what we can improve on, what you liked, what you didn't. We certainly take that into consideration. And I will be sending that link back out to everyone in a follow-up email for those who watched via YouTube. Again, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate our sponsors, our panelists, and we hope you guys enjoyed your adventure in agriculture.